back to the channel, man. Today we are going to be reassembling some stuff finally. So the subframe is good and dry. My lights aren't on in here. The front, I don't even know if we're going to get the splitter on today, but I want to get as much of the suspension and stuff on today as I possibly can. We can get all this stuff assembled. Everything's dry. It's been hanging in here for days. So we got Khaki up here on the porch. Need to grab all the parts out of the booth, man. Start putting some bolts back inside of stuff. Subframe is in, getting the lower control arms and the sway bar back in here. I got some super white lithium grease. This area in here where it actually pivots at. I also went through and I cleaned these bolts all up, and I just simply hit them with primer, bro. They're just primer grade. Doesn't have to be fancy, really. You don't ever see them, you know, but just to kind of help against the corrosion, because there was a lot of rust buildup right here. I cleaned all that off and then just hit it with a primer. Now I'm gonna go ahead and coat this sucker with a bunch of lithium. Probably one of the most difficult things to do with a camera in your hand. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. Come on, buddy. Right there. There we go. Got it started. A lot of my lithium is obviously gonna come off. But it is down inside of those little grooves that are in this bolt. So there we go. There we go. Find the hole. Oh, they're very nice. I'm gonna get all these in, and then I'll grab a rag and wipe off the excess. Alright, and while we are down here, I have these in here just, what the hell, is this not a 10? What the shit? I just have these in here temporarily. I thought they were 10s, but I guess not. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop this rubber piece off. If it's not too terribly difficult, what the hell? There we go. I'm gonna put some lithium grease in behind this as well, just to keep everything from being noisy, you know? Don't want a noisy suspension. Lubricate that guy up. Oh, I swear people are gonna timestamp this in the comments for sure. Go ahead and pop that back on there. Just try to do every little bit of, you know, detail that you can while we're here. Another thing, while I'm assembling this, I'm gonna make sure absolutely everything is tight. So I've already went over these bolts right now. Made sure those are tight. Those are tight. I just put these in. Those are tight. Everything, like, I like to make sure it's good and tight while I'm in the process. For the upper control arms, as you guys know, the bolt passes through the shock tower right here, and then you have a nut that sits on top, and you have to turn that nut on top of your paint and everything. Last time I had cracking right here. I had a really thick layer of primer, paint, clear coat, all the above right there. You're always going to get cracking whenever it comes to paint. So I tried this time. I learned my lesson, and I sanded that all the way back down to metal after the high build primer. And then I did whenever I did the light coat over the entire engine bay afterwards, I just got a coat of primer so it wasn't just bare metal. Long story short, now the paint isn't as thick right there, so I'm hoping that that doesn't happen again. But I do have these guys right here that was on there before, and this was after the paint had already cracked. I got these from MPC. So this is basically a washer, but it has a built-in O-ring on the other side. So then that O-ring is what's actually sitting against your paint, and then of course it's going to squish the O-ring down. That's going to help tremendously. Of course, it's not a 100% guarantee that the paint isn't going to crack, but it's definitely going to help. But anyhow, I've had these on here for a really long time, and so these two O-rings are still good, but a couple of the O-rings are kind of shot, bro, especially this one right here. Like, I don't know how the hell that happens. Oh, you know what it was? It was stuck, and then I had to pry it off. So anyhow, I have some new O-rings here. I'm hoping I have something. Oh yeah, look at that. That one fits in there freaking perfect. So I'm going to put a couple new O-rings in there. So then hopefully this is going to help us avoid from damaging our paint. But yeah, that will slide over it. Whenever we put this through the shock tower, this will slide over, and then you put the nut on, and this basically acts as a washer in between. Not only do you have that O-ring kind of helping protect your paint, but then also the nut isn't just spinning on top of your paint. You have a washer in between. Another thing I'm doing is these things have a knurling on it, kind of like wheel studs, and it presses into the shock tower. I put some lithium grease on that to help it press up in there, kind of lubricate it. I got them snug up here, and then I came from the bottom side with a hammer and then hammered right here on this section to help it move up and get it pressed into place where it needs to be, rather than just relying on, you know, cranking on that nut to suck the control arm. Cranking on that nut, Jesus Christ, because then that's putting all of the pressure on the paint. So with it lubricated, hammering it from the bottom a little bit, and now I'm just going to go ahead and oh, see, now it's loose as all hell. Now I'm just going to tighten this by hand rather than using the impact, so that it's not quiet on set. So yeah, I started putting this engine bay together. Little stuff like this is just kind of driving me nuts. Like, I would like to either just put brand new nuts on here or just polish these ones up, you know what I mean? So got up this morning, ran down to Harbor Freight and picked up, this is their lesser expensive of the two that they have available. The other one was like $50 more than this, but this is just a 6-inch buffer. The other one was an 8-inch. Dude, really, this one's gonna do plenty fine for what it is that we need to do around here, just for like nuts and bolts and stuff. Oh, also, this is kind of what sparked it, is I want to put the coilovers on next, but I want to switch my top hats out for this set of extended top hats that I've had sitting around for quite some time. And the aluminum on it is just real dull and, you know, kind of ugly looking. So I just kind of wanted to polish them up. Alright, so I got a few of these polishing compounds. It says the black is for hard metal compound, aggressive compound used on iron, steel, other metals to remove rust, corrosion, scratches, burrs. So that's basically for like a rusty piece of metal, you know what I mean, or steel. The green says it's a high polish finish on copper, brass, stainless, steel, and steel. And then they say this one, the brown, is tri-poly compound, is an all-purpose compound for copper, brass, aluminum, and most metals. So I got this one because it specifically says aluminum, and my top hats are aluminum. So So I can also buff these little plates that I have that sit on top of the coilover. My little MPC plates. This is a powder coat, but you can also buff it a little bit, make it shiny. Don't go too much. You might go through it, but I don't know how well the camera is going to pick this up, but it's definitely a big difference, and you can see it in person. I just don't know how well the camera will pick it up. The one that I buffed is on the right. And here's the extended top hat. This is the one that I buffed, and this is the one that I haven't yet buffed. If you guys can see a difference in that. Again, dude, I don't know if the camera's gonna show this because it's such a minute difference, but this just has an overall dull look to it. Along with this, they just both have a real dull look to them. And then these just have a nice glossy, shiny finish to them. It didn't make the aluminum like a mirror, like chrome or anything, but it definitely polished it up quite a bit. I removed these studs that go into this top hat just to make it easier to get into this area. I am also going to go through and polish the top of these studs that stick up. You know, the portion that you can actually see whenever you have it bolted in there, that part that points up. Just a little minor differences, you know, just make everything look a lot nicer. Definitely a much needed addition to the garage. Definitely will put this thing to use, but I will give you guys a recommendation. Spend the extra 50 bucks, get the larger one. This thing is kind of like, it's getting the job done, you know what I mean? But if you really want to add any kind of pressure, it stops the motor because it's not very strong, and it's only a 6-inch wheel. And on top of that, these wheels, this wheel is completely shredding. I already cleaned up my mess, but it's going absolutely everywhere. These cheaper wheels, I don't think are going to last very long. And I don't think you could put a much heavier duty wheel on here because they're heavier. And it'll probably bog this thing down quite a bit. No matter what pad you get, it's going to make a mess. The one that I remember using was a much more industrial sized unit, you know, with a much bigger pad, thicker, and it was more solid, and you could really put some pressure into it. And that's kind of the reason why you're not going to get a really shiny like mirror image on aluminum, because aluminum you have to kind of really put some work in. For whatever reason, steel, from my experience, polishes a lot easier than aluminum. But anyhow, like I said, this thing works great. It's gonna get the job done, but I would recommend, I personally probably should have spent the extra 50 bucks and got the Bauer. This is the Central Machinery. And then they have their Bauer brand. It was a step up, and it was more powerful, and it was an 8-inch. And it was only 50 extra bucks. So if you guys are going to go and get one of these, I recommend just spending the extra 50 bucks. You'll most certainly appreciate the extra power and the larger wheel. But anyhow, moving on. Now I need to grab the coilovers. And we need to get these top hats off, and we're going to swap it out for our extended top hats now that we got all polished up and pretty. Well, guess what, man? After all that work, these won't even fit on the coilovers, bro. The shaft size on this shock is just a larger diameter than what you can actually put into this. So, unfortunately, realistically, it's not that I even needed the extended top hats. I just wanted to use them because I've had them sitting on the shelf forever. These were on an old set of, what were they? Takikos. An old set of Takiko blues that I had sitting over there in the corner. And I had this top hat on it, and I threw the shocks away because they were blown a long time ago, and I kept the top hats. I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna put those on khaki someday. And that day came, and now they don't fit. So I would say I'll try them on the rears, but those shocks have the same diameter shaft as these ones. So unfortunately, you won't be able to put those to use. Maybe I'll be able to use them on Jessica's Integra, but I'm not sure. It's probably gonna have the same issue because she has the same coilovers, I believe. So my rotors are actually rusted to absolute hell. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're not bad. They're just ugly. Like the rust will come off as soon as you drive it, or I could scrub it off right now. But this area right here is rusty. Inside of the vents is all rusty. I mean, they look terrible, right? Boom! I have a brand new set of rotors. These were actually sent out to me from a YouTube channel years and years ago, man, and they've just been sitting on the shelf. I haven't used them. The YouTube channel was Blondie's Garage. Her and her husband sent these out to me years ago for the Integra, and I never put them to use because, to be honest with you, they don't fit, and I don't understand why, because these are 5-lug Integra Type R rotors, and these are 5-lug Integra Type R rotors, but the only difference that I can see is this inside diameter right here is, for whatever reason, tighter than the inside diameter on this rotor, and I don't know why. Like, it just barely doesn't fit. So my idea here is to take my grinder and just slowly take a little bit away on the side of the hub right here. I've already started. If you can see, that's shiny bare metal. But anyhow, I just want to show you guys how this is not, it doesn't fit right now. It won't slide all the way on because it's hitting right here. So I'm going to continue trying to take a little bit off of here. I wasn't even going to cover this, honestly, because this is one of those things that people like to talk crap about and be like, oh, that thing's a death trap now, but it's going to be fine. Or you're going to throw it out of balance, or, you know, people always have something to say, but the method that I'm doing here actually works pretty good. I think it's evenly taking it off all the way around. Just watch. It feels like it's almost there, but not quite yet. All right, one more round. Bang, bang! We have brand spanking new, shiny, slotted and drilled rotors, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, that's gonna look a lot fresher. Not to mention, I've always had blanks on the front. They're not slotted and drilled, but I do have slotted and drilled on the rear, which they're a little bit on the rustier side. But like I said, all my rotors, all the pads and everything on Khaki are good. I haven't had to do brake rotors and pads on this car literally in years. And it's because it has giant ass brakes on it. And the car weighs under 2,000 pounds. So it's like you don't go through brakes you don't have to replace brakes very often. Hell yeah. Alright, I'm not sure what these are called. A subscriber sent out a bunch of these, but these things are kick-ass. You actually have to use this piece on your grinder. And then with this guy, these last a lot longer than a floppy disk, and you're able to grind things a lot like flatter, where these guys will kind of round stuff, bevel it, you know what I mean? But this is very aggressive, and it takes stuff down a lot faster. That's the reason why I was able to get through this so quick. But if you look at it, it's very rough, dude. It's definitely super flat, but it's very rough. So I'm going to go over it really quick with this one and smoothing it out. And then I'm also going to put a slight bevel on the front and the back, just to kind of make it a little bit smoother and just look a little bit nicer. All right, so since I didn't have any black to just kind of touch that up, I just went ahead and hit it with some gloss clear, bro. I think it's gonna look just fine, just staying that bare metal right there. It's clear coated, so hopefully it won't rust. And if it does, I don't really give a shit. Anyhow, I'm gonna let that go ahead and dry. All right, moving on. I want to get the calipers all painted. So I have the front NSX calipers here, and I just pulled the rear NSX calipers off, and of course my rear rotors. I'm not going to be replacing these ones. They're still good. They've just been sitting for a long time, and they have surface rust all over them, so I need to get that all cleaned off. And we got to get these calipers all disassembled and ready for paint, basically. So I've already painted these before. From what it looks like, the silver paint that I put on top is the only thing that's kind of coming off in some areas, but that right there is the primer that I put on, so they're still primered. There's not going to be a whole lot that we have to do to these things. Just get them stripped down, get all the rubber and everything off, and clean them really well, and then sand them.
Living in my house. New. Fire off a basic one. It's called rope.
Everything is ready to go, man. I got everything covered that I don't want paint to get on, like the little bleeding screw. Covered the pistons on the inside. It's the same as I did the last time I painted these things. And I used my earplug technique to plug the hole where the brake line goes in, so we don't get no paint inside of there. I'm gonna go ahead and hit all of this stuff with an etching primer, in which I have inside of my gun now. So let's get that done and we can move on to paint. All right, so I just did a really light coat, just kind of a mist coat of primer over these. It doesn't have to be heavy. I'm gonna try to not build the paint up too terribly much on these things. I want to try to leave it relatively thin, you know? Yeah, I do have my paint mixed up, and I decided that I am going to be going with khaki. We're just gonna color match them to the car. Reason being is I don't want them to be basic, like something like they were, silver or black. Like, I want them to kind of stand out, but I don't want it to be a contrasting color with the car that I might not be happy with later. You know, I do think there's some shades of green that would look good, blue, there's yellow. There's a lot of colors I think that would pop with khaki. You know what I mean? I think the safe route to go is just to go ahead and color match them. Like I said, man, I could always do a pop of color with wheels and valve cover. I'm trying to avoid doing it to things that, like, I'd have to completely remove my calipers if I decide one day that I'm not happy with the color anymore. So color matching them to the car, I think, is definitely a safe route. If I put white wheels on the car, it's gonna look good. If I put yellow, orange, bronze, freaking whatever color wheel that I want on khaki, this is still going to look good, you know? Anyhow, let's just get these things sprayed. I'm not really looking to do like 2-3 coat. Like, I don't have a coat amount in mind. I just want to get them covered to where everything is covered, you know? I want to get it all evenly covered. Sometimes whenever you have a lot of dimensions like this, it takes more than one coat to do that. So we'll just see where we end up. I hope I mixed enough paint. I only did like maybe a pint inside of here, so let's just get at it. I painted all this stuff probably about 5 hours ago. It's had plenty enough time to basically dry to the touch. I'm sure it probably needs some more time to completely cure, but we can handle it without damaging the paint. They came out really clean. It did end up taking about 3 coats of paint, and then I ended up putting 2 coats of clear on them to get it nice and shiny. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with putting these on the car, bro. I need to get the slide bolts over there I have on my bench. I gotta get those all cleaned up, and we gotta put new lubricant and everything in them, get them all reassembled and get them back on the car. I'm excited to get these things back on the car. You should be able to tell because it's going on midnight, and I don't want to wait till tomorrow. I'm doing it right freaking now.